Today on Till Vacuum Do Us Part. Hello guys, and welcome to Till Vacuum Do Us Part, and welcome to today's video. We're going to be doing a very affordable accent wall. So this is going to be an accent wall on a budget if you're wanting to add one in your home. We're going to be doing it in my dining room or breakfast little nook area, but you could put this anywhere in your house, and I feel like it's just going to make it look super customized. It was under $100, so I'm going to show you these before clips, and then we're going to get started, and I'm going to be showing you the step-by-step process. If you're new here or haven't done it yet, I'd love for you to click that red subscribe button down below. It just notifies you every time I post a video, which is twice a week, so you don't miss any future uploads. So before we ever get started or buy anything, you can see in that last scene, we're just visualizing what we're going to do. We're trying to kind of tape it out to know how many boards we're going to need. But now I'm going to start clearing out the space so we can get to work. But first, I want to take a short break and talk to you guys about George and Tiger's dog food. So recently, I noticed a change in Tiger. He's been getting a little bit older, and he wasn't excited to eat anymore, and it made me really sad. I noticed he wasn't eating very often, and when he did, it was only small amounts. And George was on the opposite side of that. I felt like we were probably overfeeding him, or he was eating what was left in Tiger's bowl. So I've been so thankful to the farmer's dog. Their food is amazing. It's pre-packaged, so I know how much to feed both George and Tiger. I love how happy they are to eat now. They just seem so much healthier and much happier when it's time to eat. You can just tell by their faces right here and their body energy. They just absolutely love it. So it's been worth an investment in our dog's long-term health. So there's no more trips to the pet store. It gets delivered right to our door. There's no more worrying about if they're going to eat enough or overeat. And then there's also fewer unnecessary vet visits, which is also nice for the pocketbook. But this also helps with like shinier coats. They have better breath. They have healthier weights. So if you guys are looking for something like this, I'm going to have a link down below in my description box, and you can use that link to get 50% off. And I'm telling you guys, it is George and Tiger approved, as well as Chase and Ashley approved as well. So thank you so much to the farmer's dog for sponsoring this part of today's video. But now we're going to get back to the accent wall. Basically, I took down all those frames, and each frame had 2 nails to hold it up. So we're just going to remove all of those, and then I'll fill those in and touch those up later towards the end of this video. Okay, so there are 2 types of people when you're doing home projects like this. You can eyeball it, like what I would totally do if Chase wasn't here. I would just be eyeballing this bad boy. I do that when I hang frames. If it's in the wrong spot, I take it down, I shift it to the left or right. There may be 5 holes behind that frame, but nobody can see it. But Chase is very detailed, and I feel like this is really smart with an accent wall, is to take painter's tape and go ahead and kind of map it out so you have an idea. So you can map out every frame that you're going to be putting up on the wall, or you can just kind of put markers up so you get a feel of how many boxes you want on the wall, or how many lines you're going to be going across. So it kind of depends on what accent wall or what look you're going for. But if you're not 110% committed, I suggest using tape, even if you're going to just be hanging pictures. This gives your eye a visual without doing anything like that's super permanent or that's going to take a long time.
Hold on to me tight as we dive into the blue.
So I don't know if I've mentioned this yet, but we're actually going to be doing the picture frame molding. So we didn't know how big our squares were going to be, our rectangles. Did we want tons? Did we just want a few? So that's where the tape comes in for us. We're just trying to nail down our design. We had already decided we only wanted 3 of them, like 3 across, and then they'll have squares underneath them. But I have a thing for 3s. I like them. I like decorating in 3s. It's just very pleasing to the eye. So I knew I wanted 3. We just had to base that off of how big they needed to be, how long. So tape did this before we started cutting wood, so we didn't waste a ton of money on lumber right now because that stuff can be expensive. We just had to use tape. So you can see right here what it's gonna look like. So now that we have this taped off, you could go ahead and do 2 more if you need to see it, but for us it was enough. We knew how high we were gonna go, we knew the style and the shape. Basically, we just have to recreate this 2 more times. So we're gonna head out to the garage so we can start doing our cutting. This is the molding we chose to use. There's lots of different options when you go into the stores. This was just $6.99 for like the whole piece, which was super nice. So we're just gonna get these cut down. We did end up overbuying. I wanna say we bought 14 and we ended up only using 10 of them, so we can take 4 back. But basically that's around $70 plus tags, and that's all we had to buy for this project. We had paintbrushes, we had tape, we had caulking, and then we already had leftover paint from the builders. So for $70 we were able to complete this entire wall. Even if you had to buy a can of paint and paintbrushes, you could still easily do this for under $100. Now all the cuts are made, and just remember, when you're doing this for your space, you can customize this any way you want. You could have bigger squares, smaller squares, rectangles. If you're on a tighter budget, you could definitely make them smaller so you don't have to get as many trim boards. So totally just make this work for your home.
Wish on every shooting star that you still come back to my heart. Can you see how we've come so far? Hope you
Also, just remember, anytime you're doing any type of home project, it's always going to get worse before it gets better. Your house is going to be a disaster. It's just the way it is. You've got tools out, you're moving furniture around, but it's always worth it when you're finished. I also feel like I haven't said this in a while. If you've been around for a while, you've heard me stress this, but for all my new people out there, I always get comments of, your husband's so nice that he helps you out. I just want to do a shout out for all the husbands out there. Just a reminder, this is our jobs. We get paid to do this. So if your husband's been working all day long and he doesn't want to come home and do a whole accent wall before he goes to bed, that's okay. Show him some love. I just like to put that reminder out there sometimes because I think we forget that Chase doesn't work outside of the house. This is just what we get to do together, and we're very thankful for that, and you guys make that possible. But go ahead and love your husbands. Maybe they'll help you out on weekends. Maybe it'll take them a couple days, but definitely show them some love. So it's probably a good idea to have some type of level with you if you're going to be doing this project. You may not need it exact, like Chase is measuring out even the distance. I honestly think you could eyeball it a little bit and it'll be okay. I think once it's painted, it's going to trick the eye some, but you definitely want it level, your pieces, especially that first piece. Otherwise, the angles that you cut at a 45-degree angle aren't going to mesh up, and if they do, your frame's going to be a little bit cockeyed. So just make sure when you're putting on that first board, it's really leveled. You can even get like a free app on your phone and set it on there, but that's probably your most important board every time you're starting a new square.
burning up when you come close. I hope you never disappear. I'll be in it till stars go, quitting and even then I'm with you.
Just so you know, this video is also like a mini dining room makeover. I do have some new decor pieces I'm going to be switching out, so once this wall's done, I'm going to tweak a few pieces. I always like to do that in spaces when I'm doing a new accent wall. So it's a little accent wall tutorial plus a mini makeover if you like seeing me decorate as well. You can really start to see it coming together right here. You're getting an idea of our design and what we thought up in our head. Chase is being really good measuring things out, but once again, if you're nervous about starting a wall, I don't think things have to be perfectly measured out, especially when you look at them from angles. Like this space has multiple center points just because of the way it's tucked back here in this corner, but I think you could just almost put these frames together. I'm curious if you could like attach these frames together on the ground and then just hold them up on the wall and attach them once they're installed. Obviously this is the way Chase chose to do it, but if I did it, I would not be measuring every detail. Now when it's done, it is perfect, but I think if it was a little to the left or a little to the right, if you didn't measure out every detail, it would still look fine. Pro tip for you is to always do caulking before you paint it. This is what's going to make it look so much more professional. You're not going to have any like dark lines where you see cracks or creases. If any of the wood split a little bit, or if your frame didn't connect perfectly, this is what's going to hide it and make it look flawless. And then I'm also going to be filling all of the holes, like the nail holes from when the pictures were there. So then when I have the paint out, we can just paint everything that we need to. So I'm working with that type of stuff, and then Chase is working on the caulking. I know this step may seem a little bit tedious, but I promise you it doesn't take that long at all, and it's one of the most rewarding things. So at the end, you would be really mad once you started painting, and if you saw like the trim board not all the way flush with the wall or where it meets up in the corners. This really just covers up any mistakes or flaws that you have. So once you're finished, you're always thankful you did this step, and like I said earlier, it does not take that long to do. However, it is a very messy step. You can see right here on the ground, a lot of white stuff's falling. That's also because our product's getting a little old as well. But I wanted to show you the wood up close. You can see where it's filling in all those gaps and all of those corners. Then you just let it dry. We're also taking a wet cloth just to wipe off any of the excess. And then I'm gonna go ahead and vacuum up this mess before we go on to the next step. Okay, here is where we are at so far. I feel like it's not even painted yet, and it already looks so much better. I felt like the frames there were just getting a little too busy for my taste. I feel like this just looks very custom. It makes the space feel bigger, but now all we have left to do is paint it. Now, since this is an accent wall, you could paint it a pop of color, so whatever that is for you. Typically for us, that's like a black color. I may have wanted to paint it white, but this wall kind of keeps going into our kitchen, so we are just painting the wood trim to match the wall color that was already there. If you like this wall color, it's Repose Gray. We're super happy with it. It's just like a really gray color. It doesn't have any blue tones or anything like that. So this makes the painting part super easy because we don't have that much to paint. Now, if you were having to repaint the whole thing, it would take a little longer, but for us, this was like the easiest, fastest part.
We were young and we were free and running, never bothered about what could be coming. Every day we danced and life was smiling. We were young and drunk in love.
Here is another pro tip. If you already have your paint out and it's the same as the other walls in your house or other furniture in your house, this is a good time to do touch-ups because you already have the paint out, you already have the paint brush out. So if you have that paint anywhere else in your home, whether it's a wall or a piece of furniture, go touch it up so you don't have to get it out later and it's already done before you clean it. I feel like anytime I have a paintbrush out, I just walk my house to make sure there's no touch-ups anywhere.
'Cause you're here to stay every night and day. I'm delighted 'cause I got you.
I have always been afraid of changes.
We did end up using 2 coats of paint. We did not need 3, but 1 was not enough. I definitely don't like just globbing on paint. I like to do a real thin layer. That way it'll dry real quickly and within a few minutes I can go ahead and do the second coat. So that's how I paint. I think if Chase were to do it, he could do 1 thick layer, but I feel like it takes a little bit longer to dry. So I just did 2 thin coats and it did not take long at all for it to dry. But while that last coat's drying, I'm gonna go ahead and clean off our dining room table so I can go ahead and get it decorated. Anytime you've had any type of like painting or caulking out, especially the area it's been setting on, it's nice to go ahead and clean it immediately because once that stuff dries, it may be harder to get it off, but it's still like damp and wet. It'll just wipe off with a damp rag.
We're not young, but we're still free and running, and this day has never kept us bothering.
My chairs had also gotten really dirty. We kept standing on them to like hang the boards up high or even paint. We did some light sanding, so they had like footprints all over them. Plus they're black, so I feel like dust shows really easy on them. They're great for kids because they're like metal, so you can just wipe them right off. But since I had that clean rag out, you're gonna see me wipe them down.
'Cause I got you. La, 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 la.
I did pick up some new pillows. I was really loving the texture of this new style. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out the previous pillows I had there and then add in the new ones.
You are gone, that makes me blue, but here he comes to take me to.
These are not new placemats. I used to have them out on my table and I loved them, but then I changed up my centerpiece and I brought out that like wood platter and I felt like it was too many like brown rectangles on my table. But recently I realized our plates are kind of starting to scratch my table, plus I missed like the color and the texture the placemats added. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull those out and then change up my centerpiece a little bit. Okay guys, we are finished now, so I'm gonna go ahead and take you back to the before photos. I want to remind you and kind of freshen up your mind of what this space looked like, because there is a change, but it's not a huge one, but I still feel like it made a big difference in how it looks and feels. So look at these photos real fast and then we will look at the after. Okay, while this looks really good, now I'm going to show you the after. I am so happy with how it turned out. You guys know I'm a very like less is more person. I'm very simple. Clutter drives me crazy. So just having the texture in here, you see texture through the placemats, through the pillows, even through the greenery, and now it's on the wall, but it's not super busy. I feel like all 4 photos just had a lot going on. When I looked in this corner, it just seemed very busy to me. So I am super, super happy with how this space turned out. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you have a friend that could benefit from this video or wanting to do a wall like this, definitely share it with them because it helps me out. And thanks again to the Farmer's Dog for sponsoring today's video. I'm going to have their link down below in my description box and it will get you 50% off. I hope you guys have a wonderful week and I will see you in the next one. Bye!